everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Good Vibe Show with me, Vivek Atray. Today, I have two good friends, Dr. Manuj Wadhwa and Dr. KM Kapoor. Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thanks, Vivek. It's a pleasure to be around with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Vivek.
Nice to have you both, and in fact, such accomplished gentlemen. They are friends, but they are very, very accomplished in their own right. Dr. Manuj Wadhwa is a multiple-time world record holder, and he's a joint replacement surgeon.
Yeah.
The technical term, I don't know, you can say it.
It's an arthroplasty surgeon.
Arthroplasty surgeon, and he has been in corporate medical care for a long time, which means basically the top hospitals. Now he's starting his own entrepreneurial journey, which we'll talk about a little later. But just to introduce KM at the same time, we call him KM. He's Krishan Kapoor, Dr. KM Kapoor. He's a plastic surgeon and a cosmetic surgeon, right?
Yes. Beauty surgeon.
Beauty surgeon. So KM, what is the technical term for that?
Yeah, it's basically offshoot of plastic surgery. I'm a plastic surgeon, but now we have a branch called cosmetic surgery or aesthetic surgery. So this is a subspecialty of plastic surgery.
Right. So I'll start with Manuj. So
Yeah.
first we'll talk about shops. We'll talk about your career. We'll talk about the technicalities with KM also. Then we'll come to some more fun times. And this is a good vibe show, right?
Yeah.
So your smile, his smile is anyway. I don't think KM you want him yet. He is already perfect, right? बाद में बात करेंगे. So Manuj, your journey. How did it start and where are you now? वो है ना आजकल आता है.
Yeah.
How it started, how it's going.
See, Vivek, to be honest, I'm a small town guy. Grew on the streets, as we always say, won those street wars, and then going on to city and an aspiration to grow further. I was always used to laugh in the corporate world, ye dil mange more.
Ah.
So from there on, I grew across from these things, studied overseas, came back to India. And that was the time corporate healthcare was in a very nascent stage, and we got the first mover advantage. And somewhere down the line, we were fast movers. So the combination of a first mover and a fast mover gave us a vertical steps onto the ladder. So since corporate healthcare was growing, we had an opportunity to be there as to a passive learning and to understand the blend of business to be associated with the true stream,
Right.
which you are as a surgeon. So that combination was a need, and I would convey it definitely as a message to all youngsters that today gone is the day where you are just a skilled surgeon or a physician in whatever means. You need to have a blend of so many things to transition from a good to an excellent. So from there on, I moved on to the corporate world, and then at a certain stage, 8-10 years back, brought in Elite Orthopedics, which is a service provider, specialty, subspecialty cater for orthopedics, and then sort of collaborated with the healthcare. So now moving from a transition to be working for a healthcare as a doctor to a collaborative model where, I get my aspiration pulled in that, yes, half of the day I practice as a surgeon and the remaining half I get time to be a team leader in whatever means, and gives me a domain to understand more on management portfolios, on the finance sector, which is good because something has to keep you moving, because alone playing on numbers was becoming too monotonous.
Right. But that business edge which you now have is difficult to acquire. I mean, you said that a skilled doctor or skilled anything, he's very much into his field. And to be good at that field also takes a lot of effort. But then to see that bigger picture and become a business person, entrepreneur as well, something I'll come back to you, think about it.
Okay.
KMU. So we met when you came to my office one day and we discussed medical tourism in Chandigarh. Why can't we get all these people from Europe here to Chandigarh, you being a plastic surgeon, and we started some stuff. How's been your journey before and after that?
Yeah, like Manuj, I also started my career from a small town. I'm from Patiala. Did my graduation and post-graduation from there, but then I moved to PGI. Worked there for 3 years, got my plastic surgery training. And then again, that was a time when corporate sector was growing in Chandigarh and Mohali. So from there came the idea of starting medical tourism, because aesthetic surgery per se was a very new branch in India, and there was a lot of scope, a lot of growth was happening. We used to get a lot of queries from other countries because we were providing good quality services at a very reasonable price. So those people wanted to come here, and that's how I got in touch with Chandigarh administration, and Vivek was heading at that time the tourism department. and that's how we met, and we started some initiatives. And
How's it going now? Where have we reached?
it's going pretty well, but at that time, the idea was that in India, aesthetic surgery was not very popular. So we need to kind of get people from outside to increase the scope of work. But in last 4 to 5 years, the Indian population has become so aware of the aesthetic procedures that we don't need to look for uh, outside India to grow this specialty.
Okay.
Our hands are full even with the local people, and everybody now, thanks to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and these phone cameras, people are clicking themselves every day, making videos, posting it online. So people have started scrutinizing their looks, their appearance far more than what it was 10 years before, when you would have a separate camera and not in the phone. So now there is more emphasis on the appearance. So that's how the branch of aesthetic surgery or cosmetic surgeries is growing very fast.
So basically, you're doing very well. We'll come back to
Now,
you.
Vivek,
and
I'll
we'll
just
find-
pitch in a point out here from the sweet spot he left through. I saw him evolving, and all this while, whether he's aware or not, and he took his point on a medical tourism in a very small cocoon of aesthetics. I believe that he has a talent and an aspiration way bigger. So 10 years back, when we were in the corporate world, I could see my friend, gelling in his thought, his ideation was very, very unique. And I used to go back to the healthcare and mention that if we even follow his points in his thought process, we can fetch a very big pie of international healthcare. But at that time, there was a debate: how can a doc think bigger than the management? And so he has done wonderful for himself. But I would say this part of India has a huge amount of a potential. There is nothing across in the globe where you talk about any vehicles, cars, automation, or mobile phones or cameras where we would have something which is 1/10 the price of the international world. Healthcare is the only thing. You get the same quality endpoint at 1/10 the price. So you lay down to tourism part, especially medical tourism. My friend had a good amount of a vision, but still I believe that we have not even nurtured 10% of what is there is a potential.
And look at the talent. Both of you are outstanding doctors in your own right. But Manuj, this idea we were discussing, you mentioned it briefly, and coming back to it now, the physician entrepreneur or the surgeon entrepreneur. Tell us about your journey and what would you advise others to be in this?
So, to my all youngsters who are listening to us today, first, you should have a vision. I think the major part is you should have a vision. Along with the vision, you need to have a passion to take it, because it's your dream. And you'll require a lot of people to be driven along in this path. Till the time you are driven, till the time you are a team leader who has a capacity to follow. I mean, the people have to follow your vision and think that your vision is their vision. And third thing, which I always say, is you should have a very high risk-taking appetite. Because every time you are trying to bring a change in the system. So with us as surgeons, we master a particular process, then it's a repetition. We have already mastered it. So I would say entrepreneurs are the people who can think out of the box, who want to bring in a change, who have a vision very, very clear that, this is the way we have to reach on. Their vision and mission matrix is very, very clear in their mind. They work backwards onto a strategy to fulfill that, to put it to a time-bound execution. So I believe that all this while we always thought that India is going to be an explosion for a healthcare. So a lot of people, we talk about corporate healthcare a big way or a private healthcare. So Vivek, if you look back at the parameters till a couple of years back, the only mantra was, in India, it is the government-based healthcare which is the main. COVID has proven, and today we have a data to say that private healthcare controls 60 to 70% of our healthcare scenario. Right. And when we talk about the private healthcare, the thoughts that come to our mind may be Apollos or Fortis or Max or Medanta. But you will be surprised if you look at the data, that is not even 3% of the total healthcare. Absolutely. That means around 65% of healthcare is neither government nor these corporate healthcare. So there is a huge amount. We have a capacity for maybe $100 billion industry set getting on. So more and more younger doctors, physicians, surgeons, whatever, have to wear a double hat, both as a physician as well as an entrepreneur, to lead this progress. I have seen this transition and the tussle going through who is more powerful, whether it is the management guy who has the morosity or is the muscle power for doctors sitting and, I'm sitting on the driving seat, all bullshit. It doesn't make any difference. Both the parties have to work together in sync with the finance guys, with the strategy guys, to make sure that we succeed as a combination endpoint.
Combination endpoint. In fact, KM, your journey evolution, if we talk from taking off from what Manuj said, I mean, obviously, small town Patiala, and then you became a top plastic surgeon, cosmetic surgeon, but then that entrepreneurial and that management, and then that traveler and speaker and everything combined, how did you acquire those skills? How did you become an all-rounder?
See, initially, my training was in plastic surgery, and during my initial years, I worked mainly in the plastic surgery departments where we would treat trauma or we would treat burns or hand injuries. But then all this while, I was looking at aesthetic surgery as a future branch. And very early on, I decided to branch out into the aesthetic surgery, and along with the cosmetic surgery, into non-surgical cosmetic procedures, and which was very new in India, like injectables or lasers. And I started putting more time into this, and gradually I learned the ropes. I acquired better skills, and I became a trainer for the doctors. Initially, I was training only at national level. Then I became an international trainer. I used to travel all across Asia, in Australia, some other countries. And uh, education also became a passion. Training people, training the colleagues.
Very important.
And actually, people say it is training. I would say it's not training, it's a learning.
Yeah.
When you are teaching somebody or you're training somebody, he's also teaching you a lot of things. So
That
because all
depends
the
on your
people,
attitude also.
Attitude,
If you're receptive, yeah.
yeah, and I share my knowledge, but at the same time, the people who come to attend my lectures or who come to attend my trainings, they are all also into practice. They are also trained plastic surgeon or dermatologist. So they also share their part of knowledge. And so it became um, a very nice exercise where I taught a lot and learned a lot. And in fact, from there, of course, we are doing a lot of procedures, and we are expanding our clinics. But our next major move is going to be in medical education, where we are trying to position ourselves as one of the top clinics or academy which will be providing aesthetic training to the doctors in India.
But personally speaking, I've seen you evolve myself as a friend. I've seen you become that Dr. KM Kapoor, who's internationally traveled. And Manuj, let me tell you, I had a problem with somebody from the family was in Bali,
Okay.
unwell. And I was asking somebody to help. And then I thought of KM. I said, KM, do you happen to know anyone in Bali? And he knew a doctor in that very hospital where my relative was admitted. And somehow she was able to help. So, that international
He
travel.
has his
that-
contacts in all kind of
all,
places.
all center. Okay. But KM, one quick question to you also again. Any awkward moments? I mean, all these people who come to you, they come for plastic surgery. Some of them must be coming confidentially as well. Maybe all of them. I don't know. Awkward moments sometimes?
Yeah, in our specialty, privacy or confidentiality is a big thing. And once it just happened that we were doing treatment on somebody, and after 15 minutes, the wife also came, and both husband and wife, they had not told each other that they are getting aesthetic treatments. And I knew that both are here, but both of them, they didn't know. And I didn't want them to meet. So in our clinic, we have a very nice system wherein we have many consultation rooms and many treatment rooms. And we mostly we don't let our patients wait outside in the waiting area.
So they don't see each other.
Yeah,
So they don't see each other, and we move them into.
Oh, why should husband and wife hide from each other? I mean, maybe they're giving them each other a surprise later. कि देखो
Yeah,
मैं कितनी
maybe.
सुंदर हो गई
Yeah.
हूँ
He
दोबारा.
gives different candies to.
Because sometimes it happens, people they want to stay young or they want to look better, but they don't want to
Yeah.
tell the world that they are getting this help. We are
It's
getting a lot
all-
of celebrities also.
Celebrities also, and it depends also on the type of treatment,
And
which we won't go into.
I would say anybody who is looking very good beyond 35 these days, or say 40 these days, you can imagine that it cannot be natural.
तो ये दोनों मतलब हम ऐसे ही बैठे हुए हैं यहाँ पे मतलब
But of course, there are some exceptions.
ये देखो Manuj, you've also, he said celebrities. You have treated
Yeah.
what kind of आप बताइए जरा दो चार celebrities who can be mentioned, and yours is not that confidential.
No, mine
either,
is
right?
not. I have paid a lot. I have paid the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's sister, Bhavi. Then I was treating Mrs. Milkha Singh also. And then recently I did Ayushman Khurrana's father, Gurdas Man's wife. I operated. This Prince Nula was a big boss. I operated his mother also. So a lot of people at this stage you going through. So you do. So celebrities, more I think with a guy like you, Vivek, where I have always seen you as a very, very inspiring people, including I was a very pertinent part of your fan club at
Thank
that
you.
stage.
Thank you.
When you go on to speaking also. I believe that a message for all youngsters who are listening to us today is nothing is impossible and the vision has to be very, very clear. And that's, I think, a message I keep saying. I still remember the time, Vivek, I think it was 2009. I was climbing up the ladder and going up, and that times in our streams, doing 500 joint placements in a year was something which was a very big figure. So I was in that elation going through, I've achieved. One time I was going to Goa and the head of a very big pharmaceutical was sitting with me. Very learned guy and IAM pass out. He told me while sitting in me, you speak very less. Dr. Wadhwa, tell me, what would you do now? I said, means? He said, you're already hitting 500 joints and I said, must be around 35 at that stage. So what will you do next? You have already reached the apex of the human capacity. He spoke, he went back, and my entire trip to Goa was vanished because the whole time I was taking this question in my mind, this cannot be the end of my career. So, but now, when 10, 12 years passed by and I feel very proud today, what he told was a human capacity for a year. I crossed that in a month. So, but then it was like working backwards.
Yeah.
So it was like working backwards in the fact that you have to see how you can make your systems more efficient because the time is the same. You can work those 15 hours a day and you cannot work beyond. How do you build up the processes? How do you build up an experience right from an entry to exit? How you can build up a standard operating protocols? So there are many versions, not just the financial model which are important, but they're very much doable.
Your point, and then that evolution yours also took place, and then we were talking about public speaking skills. You speak so well, KM speaks so well, but there's always scope for improvement. So what are your challenges now? How are you challenging yourself? I know you're into fitness and running. So what else are you looking for on a personal level?
See, on a personal level, if you ask me truly to be a big level public motivator, follow the footsteps of Vivek Bindra. Somewhere down the line, see, I always did put up a benchmark for me till 50 and beyond 50. I don't know how things are going to go on to, but I did what I could do. I did it to the best of things I could of, and I've built and broken my own record. So I don't want to be competition to myself for a very long time. Now is the time you need to be a public motivator, to be a public orator, and that's where you require a bit of a training. There are certain facets which are naturally within you. We imbibe from others, we improve, but certain talents you have to get in. Like I told you, my recent in the last 2 years has been my step into horticulture. I used to appreciate a lot. My father was very good into it, but I myself never went into it. When I went into it, I really enjoy it. That gives me a thrill. So now the next part is, if you ask me, is going on to the public speaking part of it. B is learning more of cooking.
Okay,
Because
very
I'm
good, very good.
Very, very weak. I'm a
Great.
Punjabi and Amritsari, so avid eater. But I'm
Going
not
on
good
to
at
cooking
that.
is great. These are great vibes now because we are not talking only about your careers, we're talking about things which help others to also feel, that we should also do something else. Kim, Puneet, your wife is also in the same I mean, now in the same profession, I guess, but is also a doctor. So are there times when the same profession, husband wife, there's some rivalries, or you get you wanted somebody from a different profession? Can I ask this very direct question? I mean, how's it going?
I think uh, in our society, you would have seen most of the doctors, they marry doctors because doctor's life is very tough, and especially the initial years, we have to work almost sometimes even 36 hours at a stretch during our residency, and even beyond that, night calls, emergency. So I personally feel that it was a good decision to have a doctor wife, and because then you can understand the demands of your profession. And now since we are working together and in the same clinic, and I think it's a big help. It's a huge advantage to have somebody close to you, somebody from your family helping you out in managing the affairs, because when you're trying to grow beyond a certain point, as Manuj was saying, that the teamwork is very important.
Absolutely very important. In fact,
And
the
if you
fact
have,
that
if you have more people from, like, say your family or your wife whom you can trust in administration, financially, and all other stuff, and you can take some joint decision with consulting each other, then I think it's a plus point.
I've seen your Instagram posts from your organization is known as Anti-Clock
Yes,
Clinic, right?
anti-clock.
So you turn the clock back,
Yeah.
and fantastic posts. I think Puneet takes more care of that. I've seen some
Yes.
brilliant stuff there. Manoj, what about you? Seema is also a doctor, and the same applies. Do you agree with KM?
So it helps you psychologically. I still remember when we were recently married, I mean, couple of months, I was in my final year of residency, and those times are very tough. You hardly come back home. So for 3 hours, and then you are almost dead on bed, and you move back. I still remember around 2 months down the line, we had a departmental get together, and Seema went back to my boss and said, "I'm going back to my parents. You don't come back home." So, so I always believe that when we work those frantic hours in our, evolving stage, it becomes much easier if you have a companion from the same profession to understand their pressures. There are pressures, and many times this word work-life balance is just a proverb. It doesn't really fit into those professional years if you are working in India, because if you really want to evolve, your work-life balance goes through a toss. When you get established, the ball lies in your court. How much of each component you want to have in, or how good is your compatibility or understanding, and how
That's
good you divide your responsibilities for your next generation also.
Absolutely. What you said about going to the parents' home in Autobiography of a Yogi, even Paramahansa Yogananda's mother says to his father, "I'm leaving for my parents' home." And Tonga bulaya jata hai, and Tonga, then the word he uses, ancient ultimatum. It's not a new ultimatum that the wife will give, it's an ancient term. So you're both modern people. One last bit of advice for youngsters: how should you lead your life? I know you mentioned it briefly, but one or two sentences on how should youngsters look forward to the future in this era. Manoj?
I think the young generation is very smart. They all have a potential to be very good. And I keep saying, good to an excellent transition is the main transition. A good to an excellent transition does not require you just to be a very good professional in whatever stream you are on. It gives to have an insight which is around 360-degree coverage. How do you carry your ecosystem, your ethos, your character, which is very, very important, because your moral character is what ultimately would get exposed. So for reaching where you want to reach in this ladder is very important, but do not compromise on your character to be reaching there. That's, I think, extremely important.
Very well said. Excellent point in today's context. Kim?
Yeah, my advice is also quite similar to Manu's, but I would also want to add another thing, that one should need to learn how to be very flexible, because times are changing. What skills you have acquired today may not be relevant after 5 years. For example, I was trained as a hand surgeon and then burn surgeon, but then uh, I acquired more skills across my career, and now I'm hardly doing those things which I was actually trained for. So one should be very flexible to learn new things, keep evolving, keep learning, and keep experimenting. And also, I would say that money should not be the sole barometer of success. So initially, when I started my practice, everybody said you should be trying to get more patient, more work, more money, and academics are rubbish, they are no good. But over the years, I have realized that academic development is also good. And even in private sector, you can do both. You can do your private practice and still be active in academics, in speaking assignment, publishing papers, doing research. So I think it should be a balance between these two. Uh, uh, of course, it's important to grow in business, but if you want to grow in stature, internationally or nationally, you should be good in both your practical skills as well as in academics.
Wonderfully well said.
I think
Manoj,
I would
you
like
want
to add up a point here. As KM rightly said, and that goes on to a lot onto the youngsters I see today. For them, for majority, that's what I would say, success is either positional power or financial power. I said no. That positional power or financial power is too transitory a process. Success is something that gives you a kick, really gives you a kick to outgrow your thought process and go to the next step. So don't be fancied towards, as he rightly said, profit or gains. It is just a byproduct. Anytime you succeed, that is going to come along. Positional powers are very, very transitory. Like Vivek, you have been into positional power to the apex of it, but doesn't remain forever.
Yeah.
So I think success has to be quantified by a lot of different parameters across. And if you get swayed across it, I have to be a director or a chairman or I have to get this a big house, that is always going to sway in
It's
a wrong
endless,
direction.
actually. Yeah. So well said, well said. I think we're running out of time. So I just want to thank you both, Manuj and KM. You're outstanding doctors, outstanding human beings. And I think I and the audience have learned a lot through this Good Vibe show. A pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Vivek.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. See you soon again on another episode of the Good Vibe show with Vivek Atray.